Hello, maybe I should say greetings. I'm here to do the Tudor Queens Tag, and it's such a warm day today. You may see in front of you a woman who's gently melting around the edges. So speaking of Tudor Queens, just today, coincidentally, I heard that a friend of mine has a daughter who's just recently got employment at Hampton Court Palace, which is one of Henry Tudor's houses. And it reminded me that I visited the place quite a long time ago, but the thing that struck me was the brickwork. It is phenomenal. You have loads and loads of chimneys, but the bricks kind of go like this, any which way pattern, all different patterns. It's as if the brick person was told, be as creative as you like, go mad, I have lots of money, spend it that way. So it's virtuoso bricklaying. First question, Katherine of Aragon, a book that's like Katherine of Aragon, first love, first time realising you could love books. So one of the first for me would be going back to childhood, and it would be by Dick Bruna. And each page is a letter of the alphabet and then a beautiful, really clear drawing of something that began with that particular letter. The one that I remember still all these years later is C for Castle. Now, Dick Bruna has kind of fallen out of favour in a way. His works, I think, are less in print. But one drawing by him, one character has remained, and that's Miffy. She's a little rabbit. She does nothing for me at all. I don't particularly like her. You know, it's obviously geared for small kids. It just hasn't translated for me. And my husband has a friend who put up a Facebook post at one point saying that everything he was buying for his little girl's bedroom had to be Miffy. You know, duvet Miffy, curtains Miffy, sheets Miffy, tiles Miffy, everything else. He went on and on about this Miffy. And then he finally said, the mark of the beast. So he'd had enough. But I wish people could see the other graphics that he drew with really thick black lines, clear, deep, saturated colour, simple to grasp. And I think possibly at that point I began to think that books should be like that. They should have good, interesting pictures as well as words. Next one is Anne Boleyn. So here we're looking for a book with a manipulative character. Well, I don't often read political autobiographies, but I've got two books. One I have mentioned so often before that I'm reluctant to mention it again, so I'll make it really brief. Queen Lucia, out of the complete Map and Lucia, E.F. Benson, comedic village shenanigans, trying to be the person in charge of all the artistic and cultural events in the village. Hilarious, wonderful, but I have gone on about it before at length. I've got to show you one that will horrify many of you, because many people think it's a great favourite. Many people think it's one of the greatest novels ever written in the 20th century. So I'll not say a word, I'll just show it. And I didn't like it because the characters I find deeply unlikable and manipulative. Feel free to comment below. I'm sure there will be a few outraged screams of protest. Which brings me to Jane Seymour and the book that delivered what you really wanted. I'm going to have two books again, I'm sorry, but one of them I've said so many times with such deep affection, you're going to go, Daily Habits. Because this book actually said how to be creative each day, how to organise your life, lots of different suggestions because each creative person is different. But I mean, the book just works on so many levels. It's also fabulous in terms of biography as well. You get little potted biographies and little quotes from people if they're still alive. And it's brilliantly researched. So I finished talking about it for now, but it's probably going to come back up in any tags because it answers and ticks so many boxes for me. The other book that ticks a box for me is this Women Artists. Fills in the gaps of so many women artists, and quite often you hear people say, well, there's never been any great women artists. This is the book to have and to just reach out and show. Fabulous pictures all through hundreds of years of art. inspiration. So beautiful to look at, but full of information. It only has short pieces on each artist because it's covering so very many lives. So we come to Anne of Cleaves, a book that wasn't quite what you expected. Well, usually I over-research books before I buy them. Plus, I quite often buy them in a bricks and mortar store, so I'm handling them and I look through and see what I think and get a really good sense of it. But one book I bought online arrived and it was slightly different. Geese Bend, The Architecture of the Quilt. It's huge. So when you actually open it up, just to give you a size. Right, so that's my face. It's enormous and unwieldy. It's definitely a coffee table book or a study book. But there's good reasons for that. It's because the pictures need to show an entire quilt. It's awkward to store. It doesn't really fit on shelves. You end up kind of having it in a pile of shelves, of books being shelved up like that. And you have to kind of breathe in before you lift it anywhere. I absolutely love it though. Absolutely love it. It's quilts made by very poor people working with scraps of material as they could get from worn out clothing, leftovers. An art curator saw a quilt just thrown over a wood pile and stopped at the house and said, "Do you have any more quilts like this?" And the lady of the house was surprised and shocked and brought out some more quilts and some more quilts, and then he started to buy them. And he displayed them in an exhibition which showed them for what they were, which was huge works of art. And they were comparable to those huge canvases that were made and painted in the 1950s by the Expressionist painters. They were wonderful when you saw them all put together. Brilliant. And the normal way of showing them in the area was that you would, at a set time of year, the women would peg out their finished quilts on their washing lines. So in the area, that was there, you could walk around and discuss with somebody and say, "Oh, I like that bit and I like that bit." And so they were naturally, with very few resources, having art exhibitions and working together as artists, inspiring each other and commenting and sharing ideas. And even, of course, a quilting is a communal work. People would come around and piece a quilt together and chat and so forth. So I love that. So this book is a little bit of an introduction to that world for me. So that was unexpected, but a nice surprise, because I was actually getting far more square footage for my money than I thought. Catherine Hard, a book that irritated you. I don't know what it says about me, but I have several books in this category, and there is an instant winner, an instant one that came to mind. Another close airhead, simply because this is Emily Maitlis, who is a presenter on BBC, works in factual programmes, but in her actual book it comes across that she has so many she's incredibly she comes across as someone who's very, very, very nice, has had immense opportunities in life, and although she's willing to show herself getting ready for the camera and not looking particularly sharp and presenting, you kind of feel at the end of it all that actually she doesn't inspire you, shall we say. But the overall winner for utterly annoying book is this one. And again, this is not going to fit with some other people. Quiet by Susan Cain. When I got my copy, what I find is that the typeface is really small. Now I've put her beside Maitlis to let you see. For comparison, type font, which one would you prefer to read? This is Maitlis, this is Susan Cain. There's really no comparison. I also find it quite faintly printed, but that could just be an accident that I got the wrong copy that was made on a Friday, so to speak. I couldn't get into the book, but the tiny size of the font and the font itself really annoyed me deeply. And I guess that's a very shallow thing to say, but it does matter to me what font is used. And this is a serif font. And let me see, does it actually confess? I don't think it confesses what size it is. No, it doesn't, but it's tiny. It is tiny. I just find that annoying. Now I come to Catherine Parr, a book published after the author had died. And for this I have got The Essential Spike Milligan. Now, it was a narrow call. He actually passed away in the same year this was published. So he died about February and the book was published about November. So he narrowly missed it. But you can see in the front something he wanted in his gravestone. I told you I was ill. This is his own drawing because he drew as well as wrote. I told you I was ill. So it appears in Irish, but it is saying I told you I was ill on his tombstone. Spike Milligan, what can we say about him? I'm not going to be able to do him justice without special sound effects and a full-length programme and I don't know what else. He brought in The Goons, which was anarchic comedy on the radio in the 1950s, which I still listen to and laugh at. But that influenced deeply the next generation of comedians, and his humour is absurd and people just took that and flew with it. John Cleaves plays tribute to him, Michael Palin, and of course they went on to form the next wave of British humour, and it's continued wave, and people still look back to Spike Milligan. He wrote lots of books. This one is a gathering of so many different things he wrote. He wrote letters that were passionate about getting rid of background music, you know, that kind of lift type music that you get in places. He was so deeply annoyed and sensitive to it that he would complain about it. He also campaigned on behalf of people who had suffered mentally, and he was compassionate towards them because of course he suffered that way himself with several breakdowns. And in here we've got clips, bits of from books and scripts, even video scripts, which are hilarious. Even just the words are hilarious. He also did lots of poems for children, his own kids, and did little drawings for them. It's just funny. Though he's dead, his works and his words and even his voice is probably never far away from wherever you are at this moment in time. And finally, the character at the centre of all this Tudor drama, Henry VIII. And we were asked to say a book that is a chunker and that we don't like or hate it. Here we go. Here's my nomination. Dawn Patterson, The Poem it's called, although it's obviously not a single poem. I saw it in the shop, I flicked through, I found a phrase of deep insight and I went, oh, I have to have the book. But lo and behold, it was far more academic than I thought. Here's an example. Music signs are connected to its reference, neither by indexical nor by symbolic means, and they invoke neither formal nor causal attributes but emotional states. Descriptively vague but experientially specific loci in the realm of feeling and the affections. The situation is complicated, however, by the fact that music has no reference in the linguistic sense at all, since it lacks anything like a denotative lexis. You knew that already. But it's a real nuts and bolts, right down to the tiniest bit of theory and practice of writing poetry. It's not light reading. I think possibly if he'd put in more of his own poems, then that would have broken it up. But the thing is, I'm doing some studying at the moment and I actually think this book falls within the remit and I'm going to have to get to grips with it. So maybe I will learn to love it. Let's hope for that. The jury's out. The court is no longer in session. So I'm just waving goodbye to the Tudors. I'm looking forward to seeing who you picked for your nominations for Tudor Queens in terms of books. Bye for now.